The Neuro-Link hummed. It was a low, constant thrum that vibrated through the floor and into Dr. Elias Carter's bones. The machine, his life's work, dominated the sterile lab. Its metal frame twisted with wires and tubes, culminating in a helmet that resembled a giant metallic spider. This was his only hope.
Adjusting the dials, each click echoing in the tense silence.
Sweat beaded on his forehead, but he ignored it. His eyes were fixed on the helmet, his heart pounding a relentless rhythm against his ribs. Outside the pool of light cast by the overhead lamps, his colleagues shifted uneasily. Their faces, a mixture of concern and disapproval, blurred in his peripheral vision. He didn't need their doubts now. He needed to focus.
His daughter Lucy lay still in the hospital bed next door, trapped in a coma after a horrific car accident. The doctors had given up, but Elias refused to. He poured every waking moment into the Neuro-Link, driven by a father's desperate hope. Today he was taking that leap of faith, stepping into the unknown to save his daughter.
Elias, are you sure about this?
Dr. Anya Sharma, his closest colleague and confidant, spoke in a hushed voice. Her voice was tight with worry, reflecting the apprehension etched on the faces of the others. They crowded around the observation window, their expressions a mixture of concern and morbid fascination. He knew they thought he was crossing a line, venturing into uncharted and potentially dangerous territory.
We don't know what this will do to you. It's never been tested on a conscious subject before.
Elias understood their reservations. The Neuro-Link was designed for patients in a vegetative state, their minds dormant. His own mind, however, was very much awake. The risks were immense, potentially catastrophic.
He met Anya's worried gaze through the observation window. Her eyes, usually sparkling with intelligence and warmth, were clouded with doubt. He knew she understood the depth of his love for Lucy, the lengths he would go to for even a glimmer of hope. But he also saw the fear in her eyes, the fear for him. He offered her a reassuring smile, though he felt anything but reassured. "It's going to be all right, Anya. This is Lucy's only chance."
He ignored the murmurs rippling through the room, the whispers of doubt and disapproval. He couldn't let their fear paralyze him. He had to do this. For Lucy. The inside of the helmet smelled faintly of ozone and metal. Elias closed his eyes, shutting out the world and its apprehensions. He took another deep breath, ring over the activation switch. This was his leap of faith, his plunge into the abyss.
"Ready to begin recording, Dr. Carter?"
A technician's voice crackled through the helmet speakers.
"Begin recording."
Elias said, his voice firm despite the tremor running through him. His finger depressed the switch. The world dissolved. A wave of nausea slammed into him, a dizzying feeling of falling through space and time. The hum of the Neuro-Link intensified, morphing into a deafening roar that seemed to consume him. He felt a tingling sensation spread through his body, starting from his head and radiating outwards like 1,000 tiny electric shocks. Then, silence. Elias stumbled to his feet, his senses reeling. He was in Lucy's hospital room, he realized, but it was a twisted, nightmarish reflection of the real one. The bed was the same, but instead of crisp white sheets, it was covered in a thick, dark blanket that looked disturbingly like congealed oil. The window, which should have showcased a view of the hospital gardens, framed a terrifying panorama. An alien city stretched into the distance, a chaotic jumble of buildings that defied gravity, their spires piercing a swirling crimson sky. A shiver ran down his spine. This wasn't his daughter's room, this was her mindscape, and it was a place of profound unease.
He took a step toward the bed, drawn by an invisible force. The air grew colder, the stench of decay stronger, making his stomach churn. As he neared the bed, he noticed movement on the other side. A figure sat hunched in the shadows, shrouded in the darkness. He couldn't make out any features, but he could feel the figure's intense gaze fixed upon him. "Lucy?"
He called out, his voice a shaky whisper in the stillness.
He took another step, his hand outstretched, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. As he moved, the shadows in the room seemed to deepen, swirling around him like living creatures. He could feel their cold touch against his skin, a prickling sensation that sent shivers down his spine. The air grew thick with the stench of decay, making his stomach churn. He fought back the urge to turn and run, to escape this twisted, nightmarish world. Then the shadows moved. They swirled and coalesced, taking on grotesque shapes that twisted and contorted before his eyes. He saw flashes of memories, distorted and horrifying. A swing set swaying menacingly in the wind, its chains rattling like skeletal fingers. A birthday cake, its cheerful candles replaced with flickering, malevolent eyes. A beloved childhood pet, its fur matted and blooded, its eyes glowing with an eerie internal light. These weren't just shadows. They were Lucy's deepest fears, her darkest memories given form in this terrifying mindscape. And they were closing in on him, their movements growing more agitated, more hostile. Elias stumbled back, his heart pounding in his chest. He had to find Lucy, had to reach her before these twisted apparitions consumed him entirely. Before the creature could lunge, a figure materialized from the swirling shadows behind it. It was tall and skeletal, shrouded in darkness that seemed to writhe and shift like living smoke. Two glowing red eyes pierced the gloom, radiating an unsettling intensity.
The skeletal figure turned its gaze upon him, and Elias felt a chill run down his spine. "I am Raven," the figure rasped, "and you are trespassing."
"Raven, what is this place? Where's Lucy?" Elias demanded.
"This is her mind, Doctor," Raven replied, "or what's left of it."
Raven's words hit Elias like a ton of bricks.
"I'm trying to help her. Don't you understand? That's my daughter."
Raven turned its fiery gaze upon him, its silence more chilling than any words. Then, with a gesture, it conjured a scene in the air between them. Shards of memory, sharp and painful, materialized before Elias's eyes. He saw the blinding headlights, heard the screech of tires, felt the sickening crunch of metal against metal. He was reliving the accident, experiencing the terror and helplessness that had trapped Lucy in this nightmare. He cried out, trying to turn away from the horrific memory, but it held him captive. He saw his daughter, her face pale and contorted in pain, trapped within the wreckage of the car. He saw the blood, the shattered glass, felt the despair that threatened to consume him.
"It wasn't your fault."
"I couldn't save her."
Elias gasped, each word a struggle against the crushing weight of guilt and grief. He sank to his knees, overwhelmed by the raw emotion of the memory. The twisted metal, the smell of gasoline and blood, the agonizing slowness of the ambulance siren in the distance. It was all too real, too vivid. The accident that had stolen his daughter's life, that had plunged her into this living nightmare, played out before him in all its horrifying detail. He reached out, his hand passing through the spectral image of the wrecked car. He could almost feel the cold, twisted metal beneath his fingers, could almost smell the acrid tang of smoke and gasoline.
"Let me see it, please, just let me see it."
The scene shifted, the wreckage dissolving into a swirling vortex of colors and shapes. Elias felt himself being pulled along, helpless against the current of Lucy's shattered memories. He was drowning in a sea of broken images, each one a shard of his daughter's shattered life. And then, he saw her. Lucy. Not the monstrous creature that had mocked him moments before, but his real daughter. She was small and fragile, curled up in the center of a swirling vortex of darkness. Her eyes were closed, her face pale and drawn, but she was alive.
"Lucy!"
Elias cried out, scrambling to his feet and rushing towards her. But as he drew closer, the darkness intensified, swirling around him like a living entity. He felt its icy touch against his skin, heard whispers of fear and despair slithering through his mind. It was a cold, suffocating presence, and it was trying to drag him down, to trap him in this nightmare with Lucy. He fought back against the darkness, his love for his daughter fueling his resolve. He would not leave her trapped in this place. Raven, the skeletal figure, materialized before him, its glowing red eyes burning with an eerie light.
"You misunderstand, Doctor. I am not her captor. I am her shield, the guardian of her mind, but even I cannot hold back the darkness forever. It feeds on her fear, her pain. It grows stronger with every passing moment."
"Then help me save her. Tell me what to do."
Raven regarded him for a long moment, its silence heavy with unspoken knowledge. Then it spoke, its voice low and grave.
"The darkness you see is a part of her, Doctor. It was born from the trauma, from the memories she cannot escape. To save her, you must confront the darkness. You must help her overcome it."
"But how?"
Elias cried, his voice echoing in the vast emptiness of Lucy's mindscape. Raven pointed a skeletal finger towards the heart of the swirling darkness.
"There, the source of her pain. You must go there, Doctor. You must help her relive that day to face her fear and emerge from the darkness."
Elias took a step towards the swirling abyss, his heart pounding in his chest. He didn't know what awaited him in the heart of that darkness, but he knew one thing. He would do whatever it took to save his daughter. He owed her that much. With a deep breath, he plunged into the abyss, ready to confront the shadows and fight for Lucy's soul.